Well, good morning folks, and welcome back to Handlebars and Holidays. Thanks for joining me once again. So as the title says, it's essentially new bike day. Well, as far as the channel's concerned, it is anyway. So if the Kawasaki Z900RS is of interest to you, stick around, I'll be back in just a sec. So thanks for sticking around. So as I kind of hinted, it's not really new bike day today. I actually have had this bike for probably about 2 or 3 months now, and it's the first opportunity I've had to do a little bit of review. I've not really been able to ride it too much recently because of a knee issue, but anyway, let's find somewhere to park and we'll have a quick look around the bike. So here we are with the Z900RS 2023. This is the latest colour scheme. This nice cherry red oval there on the tank, that lovely retro style tail there, absolutely spot on. Just excuse my camera bag and cameras and phones and things sticking out here, there and everywhere. You will notice there I'm on completely standard exhaust with cat. I will talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But what a lovely looking bike. I mean, Kawasaki really have hit the nail on the head with giving you everything that you need and nothing that you don't really need. I think that's what this bike is all about. They've just ticked the appropriate boxes and moved on. So yeah, I think the little throwbacks to the Z1 are spot on. I will just talk about that phone mount a little bit more as we ride a bit further. But yeah, what a lovely bike. It's, in a sense, it's a shame we've got that great big radiator, but then the 23 model has a slightly bigger radiator than previous, because there's obviously, I assume, been some cooling issues. But yeah, okay, let's hit the road. Okay, so I think it's fair to say she's a bit of a looker. I think Kawasaki have hit the nail on the head with you know, doing the old Z1 justice in what they've done with the Z900RS. And it really does tick a lot of the boxes, certainly for me anyway. Unfortunately, buying this bike has meant saying goodbye to my Rocket 3 GT, which was a fantastic machine. I absolutely can't sing that bike's praises enough. What a superb achievement Triumph did when they built that bike. It's just a superb machine. Unfortunately, in my case, because I've got the GS 1250 Adventure as well, I find myself with 2 big bikes, and I didn't really want 2 big bikes. I wanted a bigger touring type bike, which the GS is just better at than the Rocket, and then something smaller for nipping about and short rides and just a bit of fun here and there. And that's where this came in. So sadly we had to say goodbye to the Rocket 3 GT. But it meant saying hello to the Z900RS, so that wasn't too bad. I think I've got about 2,500 kilometers on this bike now, but it's been a bit sort of otchy-potchy because of my knee problem. I've found this bike a little bit harder to ride comfortably than the GS, so it's kind of got pushed to the back a little bit. But it's great. Now the knee's coming a bit better. It's great to get back out on it and start to get a bit more into it. So what can somebody who's thinking of maybe purchasing a Z900RS expect? Well, I think they can expect a really nice, easy to ride bike that's a bit hassle-free. You've not got all the bells and whistles that people sometimes find confusing and a bit harder work than they benefit from. But yeah, this is a real nice, easygoing, nip to the shops on it, out on a Sunday morning for a blast on it, that type of bike. I don't know, and I'm sure, I mean, obviously you can ride pillion on this bike. It's not what I've got it for. The wife's never even been anywhere near it, but it's just a nice, easygoing bike. In terms of technical wizardry, well, there's really not a lot to talk about, to be fair. We've got ABS, we've got traction control. I think the traction control is 3-stage, if I remember rightly. And the reality of it is, that's about it. There is no cruise control, there is no quick shifter, there are no fancy TFTs and bells and whistles and computers telling you this, that and the other. It's a retro bike, you're back to basics. This is my cruise control, I hope you can see that. I think it's called Omni Cruise. It works, it does the job, you know. In my case, I'm not using it very much, but it works at the end of the day. So yeah, not much technical wizardry, but that's all charm, all part of the charm of this type of bike. I think it's just easy. In some senses, I think a quick shifter would be quite nice, but then that's just born from laziness, really. I've had quick shifters on the last couple of bikes, and the BM has got a quick shifter on, and sometimes you think it would be nice, but then in a sense, that's not what it's all about, really. For me, at 56 years old, this is, you know, this is a bike that sort of takes you back a bit. It takes you back to the older stuff that you had when you were in your 20s, you know, which is nice. In terms of things that I've done to the bike, very little, which is kind of unusual for me. Haven't put any additional power sockets on it or anything like that. The only thing really is the fitment of my quad lock phone holder. I like that. I actually found that a little bit tricky on the bike, because to get it central there was a bracket kind of in the way, and I finished up drilling a hole in the Kawasaki handlebar clamp and putting it on there. I'll show a picture of the mount without the phone on it, and there you go, you can kind of see what I've done there. And I've actually screwed it right through that bracket, and I had to grind away the nut a little bit underneath so it didn't rub on the bars themselves. But it's made for a nice neat installation, and it's right there in front of me where I wanted it, so that's worked out quite well. I did, when I first got the bike, within a few weeks, although the exhaust tone was really nice, I got it into my head that it would be nice to put a Delcovic system on, so I bought the full system and just retained the muffler, the end can, from the original bike, and that really did sound awesome. Having said that, it was loud. It was drony on the freeway at higher speeds. I just found it a little bit too loud, and if I'm honest, much as it was a really nice sound, I didn't feel that it kind of fitted with the bike. It's a retro bike. To my mind, it's not a bike for blasting about like a hooligan. I'm 56 years old, I've been there, I've done that, and I just felt like the sound didn't really fit with the bike. It made more sound than it needed to, considering the speed you were going at and such like. So I actually took it off very quickly, and I sold it, and I went back to the stock system with the cat still on it, because the sound is really nice, and I think it suits the bike. I believe Kawasaki actually tuned the exhaust to get a nice sound out of it, and they've done a good job, so I think it suits the bike, so I've left that completely standard. In terms of comfort, I actually find the bike really quite comfortable. It's not the most comfortable bike I've ever ridden, but for, you know, trips of an hour, half an hour, either way, absolutely no issues at all. The nice flat seat has a nice little bit of cushion to it, and yeah, it's pretty damn comfortable. I fitted some of the grip puppies to the bars. I just like the slightly bigger diameter. That's a bit of a throwback to my Harley days, I suppose. I'm used to a bigger grip, but yeah, other than that, I find it pretty comfortable. Obviously there is no wind deflection at all, so the wind that's hitting you is hitting you full on in the chest, but it's a clean wind. It's not too disturbed by the front of the bike, so it's quite acceptable. You're not buffeted too much. It's a constant wind, which I don't mind. It's a naked bike. This is the bike that I will ride on the hotter days here in Western Australia, because obviously that wind keeps you that bit cooler. So I kind of like that. I know a lot of people put various types of little screens on these, but I think it detracts from the look, and I just don't think that's what it's all about, really. They obviously do the cafe version of this bike with this little screen on, which just isn't for me. I don't know why. I just prefer the naked look. So are there any sort of negative aspects to this bike? Well, I suppose if I'm honest, I've got a couple of little things that do sort of grate on me slightly. Having said that, they really probably wouldn't affect most people, and one of them is the fuel capacity is not overly high. I would say, depending on how you're riding, which is the pivotal thing, 250 to 300 kilometers per tank full is as much as you can hope for, and that shouldn't be an issue for most people, I wouldn't have thought. But in Western Australia, fuel stations can be quite far apart when you get out into the sticks, and twice now I have very, very nearly run out of fuel. Been really quite panicky. The other thing that sort of made that a little bit worse was the fact that the range that your little LCD screen tells you that you've got left slowly worked its way down to I think it was about 45 kilometers, and then at 45 kilometers it just went off, and just literally showed 3 dashes. So at that point you think, have I still got 43 kilometers of range left, or have I literally run out? So that's not ideal. So that's only happened once. I don't know whether that was just a freak one or whether it would do that every time. But it's not a massive range, which it can be an issue where I happen to live. The only other thing that's possibly worth mentioning, and again this is just my own personal opinion, the throttle, and other people have talked about this, to be fair, the throttle can be just a little bit snatchy. The fueling is not the smoothest. If you're riding nice and smooth on open sweepy roads and riding through the gears as you normally would, you can ride it nice and smooth for sure. It seems to show if you're in traffic and you're nipping in and out, sounds bad, if you're nipping in and out of traffic, if you're being a little bit more aggressive would be the wrong word, but if you're riding a little bit spirited to get from A to B and there's traffic involved and you're up and down the gearbox, that's where it seems to show a little bit snatchy when you're on and off the throttle. I have considered having the ECU flashed, which I know is a relatively popular thing on these bikes, and apparently that will smooth out the fueling quite considerably, and I've been told by the dealer that these bikes run very lean in the first few gears, and that's what causes the snatchiness, and it's to do with the what do they call it, the Euro 5, making them compliant. So that might be something that I do a little bit further down the track. I'm not too sure about that. But other than that, that's really all I can say that's negative in every other respect, assuming you've got fuel in your tank, you know, taking the slight, and it is slight, I'm being picky, the slight snatchiness out the throttle, I really can't fault it. I think for the majority of people, this is a bike to be loved, for sure. I'm not sure if the camera will pick up the engine tone, but see if you can hear this. It's a really nice tone. The other thing that I've heard talked about quite a little bit in relation to this bike is gearing it up very slightly. So people are putting a slightly bigger front sprocket on. I think it's just one tooth, and if I remember rightly, it's think it might be a 16 going to a 17 or 15 to 16, I'm not quite sure. But to give it slightly longer years. So that's maybe something I might consider, because it is really quite low geared. You can very, very easily set off on this bike in second gear. If you were in second thinking that you were in first, and you set off in exactly the normal way with no additional revs or anything, the bike is ultra happy. It's very, very content to set off in second gear, which suggests to me that the gearing is a little bit on the low side. Obviously you're getting more torque and better acceleration in that respect, but I don't know if that's particularly necessary. Depends how you intend to ride the bike, really. So maybe going for a slightly bigger front sprocket is something I might experiment with at some point, but not for now. Quite happy with how everything is. It's an absolutely perfect day today in Western Australia. We've got 26, 27 degrees at the moment, not a cloud in the sky. This is what we want, not those silly 40-degree days. As you can maybe see from the sign there, we're currently on double demerits from the 3rd to the 6th of March. So in Western Australia, over public holiday weekends, they introduce double demerits, which is twice the points on your license if you're caught speeding, and it's also twice the normal fine, which obviously discourages people from speeding. Does mean you have to be super careful, because you can finish up with a fairly substantial fine and 4 points on your license instead of 2 points on your license for simply not paying attention and just being a few kilometers over the limit. So always frustrating around public holidays, because the slightest little lapse in concentration, more than intentional speeding, can cost you dearly. Oh, one other little feature that I haven't come across before on a bike is the fact that when you are in first gear on this bike and you are trying to select neutral, when you push the gear change lever up, it will only go into neutral. It won't go through neutral and into second, which completely avoids that dance that we sometimes do when you are jumping from first to second and back down to first and back up to second, desperately trying to find neutral. It will not go from first through neutral and into second when you are stationary, which is great. You stop in first, you just push it up as hard or as many times as you like, and it will only go into neutral, which I think is a good little feature. More bikes should have that. So I'm relatively close to home now, so I think I'll draw this one to a close. And in summary, all I can say really is that for me, changing the Rocket 3 GT to the Z900RS as my second bike has certainly been the right move. It's a bike that suits my requirements down to a T. It ticks all my boxes, and I can't honestly imagine that it wouldn't tick most people's boxes. So if you're considering the Z900RS, certainly get yourself a test ride on one. Maybe if you've gone past that point, I don't think you would be disappointed at all. So thank you for joining me at Handlebars and Holidays once again. I hope you've enjoyed the last few minutes. It's a beautiful day. I've certainly enjoyed it. So I will be back again soon with something else, and as is always the case, take care and ride safe.